Good morning. My name is Ingrid Burke-Friedman. I am the editorial director at JURIST, and I am joined this morning by David Crane, an illustrious former UN prosecutor. David, please, let's start out by introducing yourself and the Global Accountability Network.
Well, Ingrid, how are you? And to all of you, best wishes. Yes, I'm David M. Crane, the founding chief prosecutor of the United Nations Special Court for Sierra Leone. And I am the founder of the Global Accountability Network. The Global Accountability Network is a student-driven, student-focused, real-world, non-governmental organization that is, in fact, investigating war crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide in Syria, Venezuela, Yemen, the Pacific Rim, as well as the Ukraine. The Global Accountability Network is a consortium of over 12 universities with over 400 law school and graduate students assisting us in investigating these war crimes, and also with various practitioners and professors as well. We create a crime-based matrix, a conflict map, most responsible parties, and also we're world famous for our white papers that take cutting-edge issues and focus on those, highlighting to the world these challenging circumstances that we're confronting with atrocities as well as democracy versus strong men around the world.
And along with this interview, we're going to be releasing the third iteration of your white paper on crimes that your group believes Russia is committing in Ukraine since it invaded in February 2022. In this white paper, you frame the conflict and you take a fairly long view of the history of it. So starting well before the Soviet era, going into Soviet era crimes such as Holodomor and disasters like the Chernobyl meltdown. What inspired you to take such a long view of the history?
Well, again, our white papers are comprehensive, and in some cases, like the Russian war crimes white papers, really become the cornerstone document for governmental and non-governmental organizations around the world to use as a basis by which they can read through and get up to speed as to the tragedy that's taking place in the Ukraine. So our ideas and our thought processes were that we wanted to make sure that people understood that the history of Russia and the history of Ukraine have been intertwined for over 1,000 years. And so we wanted to make sure that they understood that this love-hate relationship between these two countries has been going on for quite some time. We do this in these white papers related to all of this so that readers can understand the context by which a particular atrocity is taking place. You have to understand, frankly, the history to fully appreciate what is going on currently in an atrocity zone. So it's not just our Ukraine white paper, but in all of the white papers that we issue related to the other atrocity zones that we are investigating.
Thank you. And in this, the third edition, what are some major trends or some worrying shifts that you've seen over the course of the three editions of this paper?
Well, again, it is this white paper is a working document. It is book length. It is meant to be useful to any and all individuals who are investigating or considering policy related to the Ukraine. So, you do, as you investigate atrocities, like in Syria, we've been investigating it for over 11 years. You see trends. As you're analyzing what is going on, atrocities and atrocity zones shift and mold. They're not static events. And so you see this very much from our first edition of our Russian war crimes, which we published 5 weeks after the invasion. And it got immediate notoriety because it was the first professional look at what was going on immediately. The conflict is long, the conflict is brutal, the conflict is intense. And as the conflict shifts, as Russia realizes that it cannot win the war that it caused through its aggression, they began to shift their tactics to just, in fact, frankly, mass destruction. And so you see this as we morph through the first, second, and then third edition. Of course, one of the key aspects of this white paper is the appendices. And of course, we also have the most responsible parties. These white papers, this particular white paper is set up so that a local, regional, or international prosecutor can take and use it for his benefit. And what we're doing, we're focusing on the most responsible parties in some detail and granularity related to their involvement. And it shifts back and forth. So the most responsible parties, some of them are dead. Some of them have been relieved of command, even though that doesn't make their responsibility any less. It's just that, you know, it shifts and molds. So that has changed as you watched first, second, third edition. The most responsible parties has shifted. We've added, as we look at the various organizational charts, Russia has done some shifting in its organization related to the military structure, those kind of things. Certainly, we're looking closely at what I consider potentially a new crime against humanity and other inhumane act provision called failure to protect by mass destruction. In other words, as Russia has realized it cannot win politically, militarily, legally, or practically in Ukraine, what Putin has done as a matter of national policy strategically is just bomb Ukraine into the ground. And that is mass destruction. So, you know, the various international crimes and provisions that are out there don't capture the gravamen of this really intense, horrific idea, almost medieval, salt the earth kind of approach to dealing with Ukraine. We can't win, then we'll just bomb you into the Stone Age. That is an international crime separate from other crimes against humanity. So I've been advocating failure to protect by mass destruction. We're looking at that, and we've been working with the International Criminal Court related to that. So the third edition of the Russian war crimes, again, it's a living, breathing document. It'll change in the fourth edition, but it's meant to capture the shifts and adjustments of this conflict.
And obviously, one of these core shifts is the death of Yevgeny Prigozhin, former leader of the mercenary Wagner group. And that would have happened right around the time that this report was released. And you did discuss him and his culpability in all of this in the white paper. How does his demise, do you expect that to have an impact on who is responsible and for what? If you could just talk about how his death has impacted your views on everything.
Well, it's a good question. Bottom line is, obviously, he's deceased, so you can't try dead people. So the bottom line is the importance of the Russian war crimes paper for a matter of fact and history solidifies what he has done to this tragedy. And he was truly a bad guy, a bad man, not just in Ukraine, but in Syria and other places in Africa and the global South. He and his mercenary group have just been wreaking havoc for profit. And so I don't think anybody's going to mourn his passing. I think it will have an impact on the military aspect of this situation. Russia's being pushed back as we speak. The Ukrainian forces have broken through one of the defensive lines. The Wagner group, who was the most efficient fighting force for the Russians, the Russian army itself is demoralized, badly led, and poorly supported. So again, they are not fighting for an important cause. They're fighting for their lives. And Ukrainians, of course, are defending their homeland. So I think that initiative is so important in military campaigns, and it's all with the Ukrainians.
My final question for you. Reports have just come out that Kim Jong Un is planning an official state visit to Moscow, reportedly to discuss the provision of weapons that Moscow could use in its fighting. Early in the conflict, it seemed like a lot of countries were careful. A lot of countries that are close allies to Russia were careful to remain somewhat diplomatic on the global stage. It seems like more recently, and as the conflict has gone on, some countries are more willing to actively take sides. How do you think that the support of allied nations for Russia's actions in Ukraine will impact your analysis of the war crimes going forward?
Well, the situation now in 2023 is very similar to 1938, where we had a moment to face down aggression by use of force and strength versus trying to do a diplomatic approach of peace in our time, so to speak. Of course, that led to the World War II, a devastating conflict. And so right now, the world's democracies are facing down Vladimir Putin, but also four other strong men who are also tyrants and authoritarianism type individuals. And, that is Iran, the presidents of leaders of Iran, Belarus, China, and North Korea, though China is beginning to pull back a little bit when they realize that they are certainly on the wrong side of the fence. And really the heart and soul of China is economy and trade. And if they start going too far down the road with Russia, that will hurt the trade. So really the main perpetrators supporting Putin are Kim Jong Un from North Korea, Iran with their drones, and of course Belarus providing space and encouragement for the Russian Federation forces. This is really classic aiding and abetting a crime. You are providing the means and capability of an individual who is or will commit a crime. That is aiding and abetting a classic example. So, as we begin to, and we have been over the past year, putting together the special tribunal for Ukraine on the crime of aggression, the mandate that we have shaped and are suggesting to the world community and the United Nations is that we not only look at Putin, but those individuals, heads of various member states of the UN, who are directly aiding and abetting Putin's illegal conflict in Ukraine. So at the end of the day, the bottom line is that Kim Jong Un is continuing and perpetrating his own aiding and abetting related to supporting Putin and his invasion. So he's just furthering his potential liability related to aiding and abetting international crimes.
Thank you, David. That was excellent context for our readers who will be able to access the full white paper below. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. And again, we'll continue to talk, and the fourth edition will be coming out probably in the next quarter or so.
Excellent. Thank you.